Okay, so the one thing I'm really not experienced with is body work. And this is the door striker on Roscoe. And you can see this metal here. I'll show you it is a steel-based metal, iron, whatever. That's metal, but it's cracked out. You can see, this is why if you have a problem with your door striker, you want to fix it and not let it go and not just slam the door. This is all cracked out here, and I've got to replace it. I went over to a buddy's house the other day. He's got a truck he's parting out, and I got a piece here. This is actually from the opposite side, but this side was tore up on his truck too. But I'm going to cut that metal out and weld this metal in, and it's not something I have a whole lot of experience with. And so this is going to be interesting. As I say, you don't learn by not doing. I'm going to do the repair on this. So the first thing I want to do though is I want to mark where this goes so that I can get this one lined up with it. I don't want to, have this in, half an inch up too low or whatever. So I'm going to mark this way and this way. So whenever I weld this piece in, I can get it centered so that the door latch meets up with it. As you can see, the door opens and closes nicely, but I just know that's not a permanent part of this world. So, and I need to mark this before I take this out, because if I take this out and all that is loose already and the only thing holding it in place is this washer, it's all going to fall out. I'm not going to know where that hole is centered. So I'm going to mark that first. I'm going to try to do it parallel with the cap here, just to give it a little bit more. Well, soapstone doesn't work on paint. Not well, anyways. I used to have a paint pen. Don't have that anymore. I think I'm going to go ahead and keep doing the soapstone, though. It is marking, it's just not real sturdy. The other thing about this is I'm going to have to take this truck around to the garage to do the welding on it. I can't weld on it out here in the shop yet. I've got to get some wiring done out here. Okay, so I got two parallel lines marking the sides of the bolt this way. I don't know how well I can do this way. I think it's going to have to be a T marking instead of a full cross. So to show you what I got there, and once I pull this out, I may not have a marking going all the way across there, but I can figure out where the center is supposed to be based on where these bars go and where that one goes. All right, so the fitting there is a T50. I've got a T50 wrench here. The tip's a little twisted on. I don't know if that's going to stay in there or not. Oh my gosh, that whole thing's wobbling around. It's going to fall out. I also have a T47 socket. T47 is the size for the seat belts, just so you know. Oh joy, the whole thing's just cracking out, just kind of like I thought it would. What a mess. Alright, I got some vice grip snapped on here. Let's see if this will get it. Nope. It just came out. So that's what I'm dealing with there. I've got a hole there now. And then basically I'm just going to cut this out beyond the edges of all the cracks. You don't want to leave any of that cracked metal in. You want to cut it out above each end of the crack. If it goes way down out here past where your metal is that you're working with, you want to do a stop drill. Basically get a small, like 1/8 inch drill bit and drill at the very end of the crack, and that'll keep the crack from going further out. But honestly, I would want to lay a bead then to fill it back in. I've got enough metal here that I can cover that entire cracked out area. So okay, my blade was pretty fresh. Ooh, I don't like that. I got too far there. But I couldn't get too deep in there without nicking the wall. So that should come out pretty easy though. So that's got that piece out. Now I just got to get that piece in. And I'm going to get it lined up with the marks and mark on here where it's got to be. And I'll trim back this sheet metal to fit the contours a little better. And we'll see if we can get it close to going in. Alright, so you'll notice on the older style trucks, they've got this plate that goes under the striker before it goes through here. And I think that really helped in the later years keep this cracking out problem from happening. Now here's the old one, and I was wondering, what's this plastic bushing here? And I get to looking at it. That's electrical tape. And that's an old school fix. You know, you wrap electrical tape on it, and you can get a door that's not working right to shut and stay shut for a trip. Man, if one of my kids did that and made a horrible mess, and then he finally comes to me a couple months later and says, "Yeah, my door's not staying shut." And there's a big old wad of electrical tape. We went and got the right parts and fixed it in about 20 minutes. And I asked him why he didn't just do that in the first place. Well, I didn't know how to. Well, did you come to me and tell me that you had a problem that you need to fix on your door? And yeah, kids. So anyways, I want to use this setup with the washer when I go back in, but I got to determine if this one or this one is in better shape. And so I got to peel that electrical tape off now and see if this post is worse than this one. This one's got a little bit of a gouge in it right here. So, and I could always turn that over to where that gouge is facing away and it'll go another 100,000 miles. But if I can get one, whichever one's best is what I'm going to use. As far as I can tell, they're the same length. So, yep. All right, so here's the piece cut to fit finally. You can see I've got it lined up with these marks here and that mark there. It's not ready to be welded in yet. I'm going to have to clean up the edges and clean up the metal behind it that I'm welding to. And I can't do that out here. I can't do any of the welding here in the workshop. I'm going to have to take it to the garage for that. So, but a whole lot closer. Alright, so one more little trick here. I had to close the shop door so I can get good light and good angle on this. But I'm going to take this piece and slide it behind here and line it up. The thing that lets me do, one, I can butt it up into the corner there and get it where it's supposed to be as far as this contour on this side. But get it lined up. Oh, wow, that bottom edge I cut kind of close. I can take this and scribe. Hopefully, I got a pretty good marking of what I've got to keep now, and I can trim this to where it'll slide right in there, and I can just weld it right up. Hopefully, we'll see. I'm still going to trim this side over here, but that's going to be some very detailed shaved little trial fit. I need this to sit flush with this metal. I'm going to weld it flush. I could scab it in probably some other way and, you know, weld some more metal in or a wash or something like that and space it, but I want it to look like it's supposed to be there. So, yeah. And I've seen the cut and butt method. I would love to be able to try that on this, but I just don't see how I'm going to be able to. I'm not good enough at this yet, so we'll see. All right, I'm getting pretty close. I've been taking little trims, just a little bit at a time. And you can see I got the fit up real close. Just a little bit, a tiny bit of gap is all I want. I can get some welding wire in there and get a good penetration. It's butting up nice. I've just got to trim back in here, that edge there, and this piece should fit flush all the way around. It's taken me about 6 adjustments to get this point. Take it back to the the bench over there and trim a little bit of metal and bring it back, and trim a little bit of metal and bring it back. You don't want to try to make all your cuts at once. You want to get it close, get it closer, get it closer. Matter of fact, I might pull a little bit off here. This isn't quite lining up. There we go. But yeah, you want to sneak up on it. If you make one cut wrong, you've got to start over. And I don't have another truck to pull one of these parts with that bevel on it. I'm sure I could probably hammer something out, but I'm not. That would take me a while. I'd rather just work with this piece I have. So I don't want to mess it up. I want to sneak up on the getting it right. All right, I got my metal trimmed to just about the perfect size. I've got to clean up this edge a little more, and then it'll fit. It doesn't quite fit flush this way, but that'll get it. But as I was doing it, I decided, I need to clean up the edges for welding, but I probably need to clean the entire surface and look for cracks, because there might be a crack under that paint. And lo and behold, what do I find? A crack. So before I even weld this in, I've got to weld that crack up. Interestingly, looking at the back side, there's that crack. You can just barely see it there. I can't quite feel it, but it correlates with what I'm seeing on this side. So I'm going to clean up all of this paint here, make sure there's no more. But I'm going to weld up that crack right there. I'm going to stop drill it first. I'm going to drill 2 holes, one on either end. I'll show that. And then I'll weld it up. And that way it'll be ready to weld in place. So, word of the wise, clean up your metal. Alright, you'll have to pardon the mess. I was cleaning some rubber out of the other piece of metal I got here to weld. But I cleaned up this side, and I showed you that crack earlier. I cleaned up the back side, and there's a crack there. So I've got 2 cracks, which means I've got to stop drill 4 holes here. So I'm going to clamp this down. I did my video a while back on how to drill, and I didn't really cover drilling sheet metal. But if you're trying to freehand this and you're drilling, and your drill snags, and this swings around, it's going to come back and it's going to cut you. For drilling metal like this, thin metal, man, I love clamping it down. Because I know the injury that prevents. As I like to say, learn from my mistakes here. Ask me how I know. This is just a little safety something. It's not a big deal, but that first time you slice your hand open and you think, man, I sure could have solved that if I'd have clamped the metal down on top of a block of wood on top of my table, you'll thank me. Since I haven't talked about stop drilling and why, I need to explain that real quick. I know some of you guys are out there thinking, why don't you just weld that and go? When you have a crack, it ends in a very narrow taper, and more stress is just going to pull that taper again, and it's going to crack further and further. That's how cracks propagate. If you drill a nice round hole in the end, it comes up in that V shape, but then you have a round area, and it's going to pull on all that area equally. And so you don't have a crack propagate if you do a stop drill. They do this on aircraft all the time. It is a way to stop a crack from going further. I could weld it, but who's to say that weld is going to get the end of the, if I don't get it just right, if I don't, I'm not that great of a welder, I'll tell you that right now. But if I don't get that V crack filled in with that weld, it's just going to crack again from right where it's at. So, let me grab my goggles real quick, just because I'm tired of getting stuff in my eyes. I did not even get the end. That extends further. I'll probably drill it in both places just to be sure. And it doesn't take that big of a drill bit to do a stop drill. That's a 1/8 inch drill bit. And it just gives a nice little radius to the end of that crack to where it's not going to spread further. And you can see whenever I drilled that hole there, that whole crack there widened out a little bit. So now whenever I weld it, it should, yeah, you can see it did crack further than where I originally marked that hole. I don't know if you can see that in, yeah, okay. Now, I guess that is the same, oh no, there's the other crack right there. So now I've got to mark it and clean it up. Now my metal's beveled a little bit, so I can be careful how I clamp this down. The crack comes all the way to here. Ooh, and it goes all the way to there. Okay. Okay. All this for just a piece of patch metal. I'm sure some of you are out there saying, I just hammer form a new piece out of thicker gauge metal, blah, blah, blah. I'm not that good. You gotta remember, this is my first time. I'm showing you as I'm learning. If you haven't done this before, well, you get to watch me make all my mistakes. Hopefully you learn something from it. So, now I gotta deburr this. I gotta find my gloves, I don't ever handle a grinder without gloves, especially this one. I have the guard removed because I have a wire wheel that I put on it sometimes. I am aware that a blade could come apart on me, so I stay out of the plane of rotation, but the wire wheel won't fit on here with the guard. The guard's been on and off so many times that it doesn't stay on anymore, and I work around it. But I've had a grinder in my hand before working on something and went to turn it and scuff this knuckle, I always wear a glove now. You'd be surprised. You'll be working on something and not thinking about it. I had the grinder grabbed the other day and pulled, and my hand was right there. It pulled out of my grip. Didn't hurt because I was wearing my gloves. Always wear your gloves with the grinder. All right, so I got this welded up. I've got it finished out on this side. This is the side that's going to be facing inward on the door frame, and this is going to be tucked behind everything. I didn't clean this side up. I'll paint it, but I'm not going to clean up the welds because that extra metal there is going to, you know, if I grind that down, it's just going to make it thinner. I don't like having it a little thick. But I got done with this, and I brought it back in. I don't know if you can see that there. There's another crack. Well, crap. Yeah, I'm just going to have to keep fixing it until I quit finding cracks in this thing. That just shows kind of how much wear and tear these door pieces get, especially when you slam the doors, when you try to duct tape it to, or electrical tape it to get it to fix. I've got my drill bit out still on my drills, so I'm going to stop drill this and then take it in the garage and weld it again. I'm trying to figure out if that's a crack too or not. It doesn't look like it. It looks like it's just bent. I'll hammer that straight. So it just worries me. The more that I weld on this, the more brittle it's going to be. But the one thing I was taught about welding is when in doubt, put more metal on it. And so I'm going to leave all the metal on the backside. Well, I fixed the third crack. The metal's not pretty anymore. I'm not sure that it's going to fit as warped as it's been. Having been welded on several times. But we're going to try it and see. And if it doesn't look like it's going to work, I'm going to get some thicker gauge metal and just bend a piece to fit and weld it in. But, learn as I go. I think that looks like it's going to work though. It fits flush all around. So now it's just a matter of welding it in. So that third bit, you can see there's a big mess of weld here. I struck a bead, and when you're trying to weld metal this thin, really you don't want to run a bead. You want to weld, get good penetration, let it cool, weld. You want to work your way along. Whenever I go to weld this in, I'm probably going to tack in the middle on each side, and then just go work my way around doing tacks further out until I get all the way welded out. But yeah, I got it started welding in that crack, and it was getting good penetration, and I just kept going instead of stopping and going. And I blew right through, blew a big old hole in the piece, just had to weld it up. But, I originally learned how to welding up holes in B4 maintenance stands for the Navy. And so, welding up holes is something I do fairly well at. But I think that looks good. Now it's just a matter, I've got to get this rust up here cut out and get the patch panel trimmed up to fit for it like I did this panel. This one shouldn't have any cracks in it. It doesn't undergo any stress other than just, holding the window in. But I've got to cut, and you can see how bad that rust is. I've got to cut all that out all the way across. And I've got plenty of metal to work with on this new piece, I think. So I'll get that cut out, and then here in the next couple days, I'll clean out the bed so I can park this outside for a few days. Hopefully I'll get some tires on it, on the wheels here pretty quick. That way I can roll it around, and I can roll it out to the garage and start welding before it starts getting too cold around here.